We are going to be studying now from the study of the 10 Sefirot with Rabash. Before we start the study together, we'll hear the dear friends from our awakening team that will prepare us for this lesson. Please, friends.
Yes, friends, we've just been rewarded. Can you? You couldn't hear him. We've been rewarded with a lesson with Rabash, a lesson of Tas, the lessons that Rabash would receive. That's the main portion of the lesson, that we want the reforming light and to ask the Creator to connect us, all our tens together into one soul, to rise in all the degrees. Now in this lesson, let's not wait for the Congress, let's do it now. Yoel will now read for us an excerpt that will explain to us how we do it.
And this is guidance from Rav's words. By the intention, we connect our desires, our wills into one. By the intention, we appear before the Creator as those who want to bestow upon Him. What do we want to bestow? We have nothing to give. We bestow upon Him only by the intention. We connect against our egoistic force in order to give the Creator the opportunity to fulfill us and enjoy us. Through this, we are called Malchut, that enjoys her first 9 Sefirot. She can receive them in order to bestow. That is her correct form of reception. Rav.
Friends, now we are approaching the study of the 10 Sefirot. Our 10 Sefirot are right next to us. What we need to do, what we can do, is an effort to connect to those 10 Sefirot, to collect the pieces of our soul, to go out to the field that the Lord has blessed, and collect those pieces of souls that were disconnected from us. We need to forget about ourselves and get into the thoughts and desires of the friends with us. Let's make this effort. Go into a workshop and ask the Creator to give us the strength to unite. Silent workshop.
Silent workshop. We're going to ask to hold the Creator in all our forces throughout the lesson. Our study in the study of 10 Sefirot today will be in part 5, in volume 2. We are going to start in the inner light, item 9, starting with here, and this extends by that keter being refined, And before that, we will read item 9 from the words of the Ari in preparation for this. Item 9, the words of the Ari. Now the nukva is contained in the tchura, the male, since the nukva is the light of chokhmah, and the male is the light of keter that remained in the vessel. Hence, it is the male that now receives from its root, which is the root of keter. This is extended to it by refining that keter that remained above at the end of the roots, and it is greatly refined by the upper illumination of the root of keter. Then a great light shines in the male of the keter, and the female is incorporated in the male and receives illumination from it, until these three phases are even in their illumination. They are the male and female of the vessel of keter, and that keter that is on them. Once they are even, they will receive their light from the root of the upper keter. Please, we'll move to Rabash lesson.
No. The light of keter is light, student, Rabash. So, student, so what, Rabash? So we learned above in 2999. What did we learn above? This is extended to it by refining that keter that remained above at the end of the roots. What is written there? There is a very important concept here. The coupling that was made here now is the upper coupling of the Rosh, which is done by this screen in Malchut of the Rosh. Thus, how will the light of Keter be incorporated in this coupling, which is light? It has already clothed the coarseness of the goof. So here it already has what I call coarseness of the goof, which is very far from the phase of the Rosh. So how can it rise to Malchut of the Rosh? He says, the light of Keter of the goof. So I'm speaking of what was clothed in the goof. That part that was already given, that can already be attained. Light without attainment, we don't know that it exists. Who knows that it exists? If I say the light of Keter that was in the goof, it means that there was something, attainment that was clothed, attainment in the goof, and that's what I talk about.
Then why does the light?
If you say the light that was in the Rosh, what does that mean? That light has still not been attained. A light that emerges below the Rosh is already attained. So I'm speaking of those who attain it on that phase. And then we say it is no longer attained. But what remains in it is what he attained of it. Something remains on it. The Rishimo, the record. This is why we say that everything we speak of the light of Keter that stands below is what he attained, what the goof attained. So if I react forcefully, now it's refined. All the vessel of reception is refined and went up to the Rosh. You therefore find that what he attained is refined, and therefore the light of Keter that was called attained, who attained it, the light of Keter can rise. Now, whoever attained it goes back down because it expanded in practice. Therefore, the goof that was incorporated on the light of Keter also returns to its previous state. We're not speaking about, now there's a rule. Now there's a rule. If I speak of some degree, I don't speak only about the light, only about what is attained. Then I'm speaking of attainment. Since the light of Keter, which is a phase that is below Malchut of the Rosh. And now a second, third degree comes. They all pass, as he says, through the cascading of the worlds. What is the cascading of the worlds? There's already some attainment there. Otherwise, we cannot speak of the light. This is why I have 1, 2, 3, meaning the light of Keter, the record of clothing, the record of coarseness. That's according to the cascading. Afterwards, when they're all refined, they all went up to Malchut of the Rosh. So it's only a relation. He wants study there, as it's mentioned, awakened in the male of the vessel of Keter, of the goof, who wants to clothe although he cannot clothe in the goof. And on that awakening, it is enough for it to be in the phase of, we say that, for whom did he receive? Did he receive in potential? He received so he could expand in the goof. Except we're saying that he cannot. He awakened and wants, but he can't. So we need to learn two things. He wants to clothe in the goof in practice. By what? Through the coarseness of phase 3, but he cannot. So you need to learn two things. He wants, but he cannot. The fact that he wants is already enough for it to not be similar before he wants. We'll see later. This will be later. Afterwards, we learn the 3 of coarseness, but in the meantime, I don't speak of 3 of coarseness. Student, why is it impossible to learn it here? Rabash, he wants to, but he can't. Again, think what it wants. First, he wanted, also what did not have a masach. Now, a screen. Now that he's incorporated in the coarseness of phase 3 and he extended something, this he cannot extend, draw in practice. In this Rosh, he cannot. But does he want to or doesn't want to? Before that, he also didn't want to. Why cannot he learn this? Just as we learn about the light of Keter. He wants, even though the light of Keter. Can he? So why does he want? It's two things. I wish it were like that. Because you're already clothed. There was already a thought about it. And there's also a difference. Every little thing, every new sound is a new face. If you say that he received illumination in the Rosh from an actual coupling. Look. Hence, while the phase of coarseness of clothing awakened in the male of the vessel of Keter to clothe this great light that he received now, in actual clothing, meaning to clothe in the 10 Sefirot of the goof. Although he cannot, I'm adding, because of that, the phase of goof, incorporated in the light of Keter, that stands at the place of Malchut of the Rosh, immediately became apparent. Along with it, his form became different from Malchut of the Rosh, even though he cannot, as we learned in the where it says, although. As by this, it is regarded as having been instantly separated from Malchut and departed from there to his place. Why? Can he go up to Malchut of the Rosh? He did not receive anything. Now that he becomes, that he wants to receive something, it is considered that he emerged from Malchut, since disparity of form separates and distinguishes the spirituals from one another. Since he departed from the place of Malchut of the Rosh, and we learn that it shines in the Rosh. You find that he was immediately separated from the light of the upper Keter, that was shining in it abundantly. And nothing remained in him, in the light of Keter. But for the previous restricted illumination, which is called that the light of Keter returned his face upward and his posterior downward. So what remained in him? The question is this: if it's light of Keter, what does it mean? Restricted illumination. We're speaking of what shines below, where his posterior downwards. A restricted illumination. Previously, he wanted to shine to the lower one, a great illumination that he received. Now, what emerges from the Rosh, what can he bestow downward? His posterior downward, a restricted illumination. You find that I'm speaking of the light of Keter also with respect to the Guf, not with respect to itself. With respect to itself, it's light. So, what is its posterior downward? What's shown previously to the Guf, a restricted illumination, this it can shine now as well. But a great illumination that he received from the new coupling, it came to him through the coupling. He comes to the light of Keter while he was in Malchut, went down to the Guf, it doesn't expand. When I'm speaking of the light of Keter, that it has a Guf, it doesn't have a Guf. It's all from what should shine to the Guf. The light is actually what he's asking. Light is light, except I'm saying the light of Keter of the Guf, we speak of what he attributes to the Guf. You find that what is the light of Keter above Malchut of the Rosh is in order to shine to the Guf. Above, below, who is it? Only with relation to the Guf.
This part is a little difficult, what he asked.
If he says that the light of Keter means that he was accompanying the Guf, so I'm speaking of the part of the Guf that went up, as we said before. Let's finish it. He writes, Nukva of the Keter, which is phase 3, must also receive from her upper root. It means that the coupling is not completed by the great coupling of the level of the upper Keter. Why? For its illumination does not expand to the Guf. Thus, there is a need for the coupling made on the phase of the female of Keter, meaning the complete coarseness of phase 3, both from the phase of extension and from the phase of clothing. And then it can expand in the Guf.
What is this clothing?
So now we're learning.
We're going to start with the second column, the upper root. Nukva of the Keter must also receive from her upper root, which is the upper Chokhmah, inner light, from the upper root, which is the upper Chokhmah. Inner light. From her upper root, which is the upper Chokhmah, it is written above that the record that remained from the level of Chokhmah of the first expansion after its departure is the phase of coarseness of phase 3. It is made here into the phase of Nukva of the Keter, and it is the source of this second expansion. Since the second Partzuf, called Ab, needs to receive a phase against it in Galgalta, what phase does she receive? Not from Keter of Galgalta, only from Chokhmah of Galgalta, the record of phase 3 that remains in her. What's written above? Therefore, the root of the upper Chokhmah descends in Bina, Bina in Chesed, etc. The coupling made on the phase of the female of Keter, which is phase 3, causes the descent of the degrees from Rosh to Sof. Keter descends to the degree of Chokhmah, Chokhmah descends to the degree of Binah. Binah descends to the degree of Chesed. And finally, Yesod descends to the degree of Malchut. Look above at what's written. Therefore, if Chokhmah needs to receive Ab, which is the Partzuf Chokhmah, and needs to receive from the phase against it in Partzuf Galgalta, which is Chokhmah, hence the root of the upper Chokhmah descends in Binah and Binah in Chesed until it descends Yesod in Malchut. From this we understand that the light of Yesod is in the vessel of Malchut, and the light of Chokhmah descends in Binah because the light of Chokhmah is in the vessel of Binah. This is impossible, but we can say that a great light comes in a small vessel, which is light of Chokhmah descending in Binah. So this means that he explains it another way, that the root of the upper Chokhmah, which is the Sefirah Chokhmah, in the degree of Keter, there was the light of Chokhmah in the vessel of Chokhmah. There's no more than the light of Binah in Chokhmah now. So we should say that the light of Chokhmah in the vessel of Keter, look at what he's saying here, so that you don't get confused, because he says it in a different way. In truth, we should say it this way, that the root of Keter, meaning the vessel of Keter, descended to Chokhmah. There's no light of Chokhmah there, and the root of the upper Chokhmah, the vessel of Chokhmah, descends to Binah, and there's no light there but the light of Binah, and in Chesed. Until what? Until Yesod descends to Malchut, meaning that the vessels of Yesod have no more than the light of Malchut. And Malchut remains empty of light. But above, it's hard to understand a little the language. Therefore, we should say that the coupling that was made on the phase of the female of Keter, which is phase 3, causes the descent of degrees from Rosh until Sof. As the Ari begins to say that in Chokhmah and Binah, and that completes the Keter. Who causes it? The coupling that was made on phase 3. This coupling that was upon phase 3 causes us the descension of the light, the descension of the vessels, the descent of the vessels. The upper root of Keter is Chokhmah, and the root of Chokhmah descended, meaning the light of Binah, and the root of Yesod has a descent that only has the light of Malchut, and Malchut itself is only the phase of light, meaning it's lacking light in phase 4 now. The reason for it is that this coupling, why is there a descent? This coupling takes place on coarseness of phase 3, does not raise reflected light, and draws only the level of Chokhmah. Hence, with regard to this coupling, you find that the light of Chokhmah descends and clothes the vessel of Keter. We have a rule that every light that comes into a more refined vessel. Therefore, it turns out that the light of Chokhmah descends. You find the light of Chokhmah descends and clothes the vessel of Keter. It is considered that Keter descended from its degree and came to the degree of Chokhmah. Similarly, the light of Binah clothes vessel of Chokhmah, and the Sefirah Chokhmah descends to the degree of Binah until the light of Malchut clothes the vessel of Yesod. Since it turns out that by the creation of Yesod that had to have now the light of Yesod, what does it have now? It has the degree of Malchut. What is a descent? If it doesn't have the light she had before, it's considered now that I have a descent from the previous degree. That Keter, which rose to the place of the root of Malchut, descends in its place. Which Keter? The light of Keter of Guf, which rose to the place of the root of Malchut, of Rosh, descends in its place. Where is its place? Below the Malchut. For it cannot be there. Why? One, since it has no similarity with the root of Malchut, and two, in addition, it is a branch of the light of Keter that was in the Guf, and Malchut is a root, which is the face of Rosh. Hence, it is worse than her, worse than Malchut. Although it receives from Keter, who? The light of Keter. However, it comes down to its place below Malchut of Rosh. And there, below Malchut of Rosh, remain standing there the records of clothing and of coarseness that rose to the place of Keter. Now Keter descends to its place, so he says, and there it can be there together with Zon that were in the place of Keter. Since then, they are all equal, having received equally from the root of the upper Keter. Did you see what's written above? Here is the question. How could there be in place of Malchut before? Now we say there's no similarity. It descends. So why can it ascend? We will see. Inner light. That Keter, etc., since it has no similarity with the root of Malchut, therefore it descends. How can it ascend? He explains. During the ascent of the screen and the Sefirot to the emanator, meaning that they were completely refined from the phase of coarseness of the Guf, meaning from above downward, where they stopped receiving and returned to their root from Malchut of Rosh, nothing is received. By that, they have come to equivalence of form with Malchut of the Rosh. Thus, it is considered that the light of the level of Keter that rose from the Guf, with all the phases of the Guf and the screen, which is the actual Guf, also departs. It also departs from the Guf and could ascend to Malchut of Rosh. Moreover, the light of Keter that was clothed in the Guf, that came to the place of Malchut. Why? Since it is then as refined as Malchut, and there is no disparity of form between them whatsoever, as they are recessed. He wrote, this is extended to it, and how can she rise above? By refining that Keter that remained above at the end of the roots. The light of Keter, of Guf, which ascended above after the departure of the lights and stands below in Malchut of Rosh, from Malchut of Rosh, could descend where the Guf is lost from it. And the whole matter called Guf, light of the Kli, is clothed in the Guf. Who's the Guf? Malchut of Tabul received it, and now that Malchut of Tabul refined and rose above, it turns out the Guf that was upon the face of Keter is not refined. Therefore, I understand really well that the light of Keter, of Guf, does not have now the Guf upon it, as it was refined. It can ascend to the place